They fired me at my own husband's funeral. You're done here, Margaret. Pack your desk by Monday, Richard said, his voice cold enough to freeze hell itself, standing 3 feet from Robert's casket. But he didn't know I'd spent the last 4 months building something with Robert's secretary, a woman he'd tried to bribe with $2 million. And when Patricia walked into that board meeting with the stock certificate in her hand, Richard's face went white as snow. Let me tell you how a 62-year-old widow took down a billionaire partner who thought grief made me weak. My name is Margaret Ann Thompson, and for 38 years, I was just Margaret, the woman behind the man. The one who hosted dinner parties for clients, who remembered everyone's birthdays, who kept Robert's life running smooth as silk while he built Thompson Sterling Technologies from a garage startup to a company worth $340 million. I met Robert when I was 59. Late bloomer, they'd say. I'd been widowed once before. My first husband, James, died of cancer when I was 45. I'd spent 14 years alone, content with my book club, my garden, my quiet life in suburban Sacramento. Then Robert walked into the Whole Foods on Fair Oaks Boulevard, knocked over my cart reaching for organic tomatoes, and apologized so profusely I had to laugh. 3 months later, we were married at the courthouse. Small ceremony. His adult children, Richard Jr., 35, and Caroline, 32, weren't there. Work obligations, Robert said, but I saw the tightness around his eyes. They didn't approve. Their mother had died 6 years earlier, and I was the interloper, the replacement, the gold digger, though I had my own retirement savings and wanted nothing from Robert except companionship. We had 3 beautiful years. Robert had built Thompson Sterling with his business partner, Marcus Sterling, 50-50 split since 1987. Richard, Robert's son, worked as VP of Operations. Caroline handled HR. It was a family affair, Marcus liked to say, though he never mentioned that his own son, David, was CFO. The company designed proprietary software for healthcare systems. Boring to most people, but it was Robert's passion. He'd light up talking about patient data management, about saving lives through better information flow. I'd see him some mornings at 5 a.m., already at his home office, glasses sliding down his nose, muttering about code architecture. I'd bring him coffee, 2 sugars, splash of cream, and he'd pull me onto his lap like we were teenagers. "What would I do without you, Maggie?" he'd ask. I'd kiss his forehead. "Lucky for you, you'll never find out." I was wrong. Robert collapsed during a board meeting on March 15th. Massive heart attack. He was dead before the ambulance arrived. Caroline called me from the hospital. I was at Costco, of all places, buying toilet paper in bulk because we'd run out. And I remember dropping my phone in the parking lot, the screen shattering into spiderweb cracks that looked like how my heart felt. The funeral was on March 19th. Spring in Sacramento. Cherry blossoms blooming like the world hadn't just ended. The service was at East Lawn Memorial. 200 people packed into the chapel. Colleagues, clients, friends I'd never met. Marcus gave the eulogy, talking about Robert's brilliance, his integrity, his vision. Richard sat in the front row, stone-faced. Caroline cried into her husband's shoulder. I sat alone, 1 row back. No one asked me to sit with the family. After the service, there was a reception at the house, our house, a 4-bedroom colonial, in Orangevale with a pool Robert never used and a garden I'd spent 3 years perfecting. I was in the kitchen arranging sandwich platters from Rayleigh's when Richard walked in. He was tall like his father, but where Robert had warmth in his eyes, Richard had ice. "We need to talk," he said. I wiped my hands on a dish towel. "Of course. Whatever you need." He closed the kitchen door. Through the window, I could see guests milling around the living room, eating finger sandwiches, drinking wine, doing that awkward dance people do at funerals. "You're done at Thompson Sterling," Richard said flatly. I blinked. I don't work at Thompson Sterling." But you will try to interfere. You'll try to claim ownership. You'll say Dad promised you things. His jaw clenched. Let me be crystal clear. You were married 3 years. My mother was married to him for 32. You're not family. You're not an owner. You're not anything. Heat rushed to my face. Richard, I never wanted. Monday morning, I'm announcing restructuring. Marcus and I are taking full control. The company needs stability, not a grieving widow playing businesswoman. He leaned against the counter, arms crossed. Dad's will leaves you the house and some cash. Be grateful for that and disappear. Disappear? The word came out as a whisper. You got 3 good years with him. You got a nice house. That's more than most gold diggers get. He pushed off the counter, headed for the door. Oh, and Margaret, if you try to fight this, I have lawyers who'll drag your name through every newspaper in California. I know about your first husband's debt. I know you declared bankruptcy in 2003. I know exactly who you are. He left me standing there, legs shaking, hands gripping the counter so hard my knuckles went white. Through the window, I watched him rejoin the reception, watched him accept condolences with a sad smile, watched him play the grieving son while I stood in the kitchen of my own home, dismissed like hired help. I didn't cry. Not then. I'd cried enough. That night, after the last guest left, after Caroline hugged me stiffly and said, "Take care of yourself," after Marcus clapped my shoulder and said, "Robert loved you, Margaret. Never forget that," I sat in Robert's office. His laptop was still open, screensaver showing photos of us. Napa Valley wine tasting, Lake Tahoe in winter. The cruise to Alaska where he'd gotten seasick and I'd held his hair back, both of us laughing. I touched the screen, and it woke up, asking for his password. I typed it in. Maggie Forever 2021, his email loaded. I wasn't snooping, not really. I was looking for something, anything, to feel close to him. I clicked on his sent folder, scrolling through business emails, client communications, meeting notes. Then I saw an email dated March 10th, 5 days before he died. To Patricia Chen, pachenutomsonsterling.com. Subject, documentation, confidential Patricia. Per our conversation, I'm attaching the stock certificate documentation. Keep this in your personal safe, not the office. If anything happens to me before I can resolve the Marcus situation, Margaret will need this. Trust only her. Richard doesn't know, and he can't know until after. This protects everyone. Make sure she gets it. Make sure she understands what it means. R. My heart hammered. I clicked the attachment, but it required a password I didn't have. I read the email 3 more times, my hands trembling. Stock certificate. Margaret will need this. Richard doesn't know. Patricia Chen was Robert's executive assistant, 28 years old, whip-smart, fiercely loyal. She'd worked for Robert for 6 years, knew every detail of the business, practically ran his calendar and communications single-handedly. Robert trusted her completely. I grabbed my phone, the shattered screen phone that still worked, barely, and texted her. Me. Patricia, this is Margaret. Can we meet tomorrow? Private. Important. 3 dots appeared immediately. Patricia. 10 a.m. Starbucks on Madison. Come alone. I barely slept that night. The Starbucks was half empty on that Sunday morning. Patricia. Sat in the back corner, laptop closed, 2 coffees already on the table. She stood when I approached, and to my surprise, she hugged me. I'm so sorry, Mrs. Thompson, she said softly. Robert was. He was special. Call me Margaret. I sat down, wrapping my hands around the coffee cup. Thank you for meeting me. Patricia glanced around, then leaned forward. You found the email. How did you? He told me you'd find it. He said you were smarter than Richard gave you credit for. She pulled a manila envelope from her bag, set it on the table between us. Before we discuss this, you need to know something. Yesterday, Marcus Sterling came to my apartment. My stomach dropped. What? He offered me $2 million. Patricia's voice was steady, but her hands shook slightly. Cash, offshore account, completely untraceable. All I had to do was destroy what's in this envelope and confirm that Robert never gave me anything to hold for you. The world tilted slightly. $2 million? He said you'd try to make trouble. He said you'd try to claim ownership of company assets you had no right to. He said destroying this document would be protecting Robert's legacy from a con artist. Patricia's eyes hardened. His words, not mine. Why are you telling me this? I asked carefully. Because 3 years ago, my little sister needed emergency surgery. Brain tumor. Experimental procedure not covered by insurance. $300,000! Patricia's voice cracked. I went to Richard, asked for a loan against my salary. He laughed. Said I should have bought better insurance. Robert heard me crying in the bathroom afterward. He didn't say a word, just transferred the money to my account that day. When I tried to pay him back, he told me it was a gift. That family takes care of family. Tears rolled down her cheeks. My sister graduated college last month. She's alive because of Robert. So Marcus can take his $2 million and shove it straight up his... She caught herself. I'm not interested. I reached across the table, squeezed her hand. Thank you. Patricia slid the envelope toward me. Open it. Inside were 3 documents. The first was a stock certificate dated December 18, 2024, 3 months before Robert died. It showed a transfer of 1% of Thompson Sterling Technologies from Marcus Sterling to Robert Thompson, with a notation, settlement of private debt, per personal loan agreement dated March 3, 2008. The second document was a letter in Robert's handwriting. Maggie, if you're reading this, I'm gone. I'm sorry I didn't tell you while I was alive. I was trying to protect you from the mess. In 2008, Marcus nearly bankrupted the company with bad investments. I gave him a $5 million personal loan to save us both. The agreement was that he'd pay me back with interest, or transfer 1% of his shares each year until the debt was settled. He's been fighting me on it for 16 years, claiming the original paperwork was invalid. Last December, I finally got him to settle. This certificate gives me 51% ownership of Thompson Sterling. I own the company outright. Under California community property law, half of everything I acquired during our marriage belongs to you. That includes this 1% that puts me over 50%. You own 51% of the company, Maggie. Not Richard. Not Marcus. You. I was going to tell Richard after I sorted out the transition plan. I wanted to do it gently, give him time to adjust. I knew he'd be angry. He's expected to inherit my shares since he was 20. But he's not ready to run this company. And Marcus has been undermining me for years, trying to push me out. I wanted you protected. I wanted you to have power. Patricia knows a lawyer, David Yun, estate and corporate law. Trust him. Trust Patricia. Trust yourself. You're stronger than you think, my love. My hands shook so hard the paper rattled. You own the company, Patricia said quietly. Or at least you own the controlling share through inheritance. Robert's will should have specified this, but Richard's been working with Marcus to suppress it. They're planning to declare you an unqualified beneficiary and claim the shares revert to qualified family members, meaning Richard. Can they do that? Not legally, but they can make your life hell trying. Patricia pulled out her phone, dialed a number. I'm calling David Yun. You need a lawyer. Now. David Yun met us at his office in downtown Sacramento an hour later. He was mid-40s, crisp suit, kind eyes, and the no-nonsense energy of someone who'd seen every dirty corporate trick in the book. He reviewed the documents for 20 minutes without speaking, occasionally making notes, his expression darkening. Finally, he looked up. Margaret, when did Robert die? March 15th. And when did Richard tell you that you were done with the company? March 19th at the funeral. David's jaw tightened. That son of a bitch. He caught himself. Apologies. But he's moving fast because he knows the moment you get proper legal counsel, his whole plan falls apart. This stock certificate is legitimate. The debt agreement is documented and notarized. Robert's will, which I'm betting Richard hasn't shown you yet, should specify that all community property goes to you, including business interests acquired during marriage. How do I stop them? I asked. We file for emergency relief in probate court. We present the stock certificate, Robert's letter, and a petition recognizing you as majority shareholder. We demand an immediate board meeting to confirm ownership and voting rights. David leaned back in his chair. But here's the problem. The board currently consists of 5 people: Marcus, Richard, Caroline, David Sterling, and Robert's empty seat. They'll vote against you 4-0. They'll claim the certificate is fraudulent, that Robert was mentally incompetent when he wrote that letter, that you manipulated him. My stomach churned. So I can't win? I didn't say that, David smiled slowly. We file a restraining order. A what? A civil restraining order against Richard and Marcus for financial elder abuse and coercion of a widow. We claim they're attempting to defraud you of your rightful inheritance through intimidation, threats, and conspiracy. We submit evidence, Patricia's testimony about the $2 million bribe attempt, documentation of Richard's threatening behavior at the funeral, analysis of their communications showing coordination to exclude you. Patricia nodded. I saved every email Marcus sent me, every text, including the ones where he specifically mentioned keeping the widow in the dark, David continued. A restraining order, if granted, would prohibit them from making any corporate decisions regarding ownership, voting, or board composition until the probate court rules on your petition. It essentially freezes them out while we establish your rights. And here's the beautiful part. If we can prove they knowingly attempted to defraud you, the court can rule that any actions they've taken since Robert's death are void. How long does this take? I asked. Emergency restraining order hearing can be within 72 hours. But, Margaret, you need to understand what you're starting. This isn't just a legal fight. This is war. Richard and Marcus have resources, connections, and they will come after you with everything they have. They'll dig into your past, your finances, your first marriage, everything Richard already threatened you with. They'll try to destroy your reputation. I thought about Robert's words. You're stronger than you think. I thought about Richard's sneer. That's more than most gold diggers get. I thought about Caroline not asking me to sit with the family. I thought about Marcus offering $2 million to erase me. Let's file, I said. The next 3 weeks were hell. David filed the emergency petition and restraining order request on Monday, March 23rd. By Tuesday, Richard's lawyers descended like vultures. I received a cease and desist letter accusing me of theft of corporate documents, defamation, and conspiracy to commit fraud. They claimed the stock certificate was forged, that Patricia had fabricated Robert's letter, that I'd coerced a dying man into changing his will. The letter arrived via courier at 8 a.m. By 10 a.m., there were reporters in my driveway. Someone had leaked the story to the Sacramento Bee. Widow of tech CEO claims ownership. Family cries fraud. I stopped reading after the first paragraph described me as Margaret Thompson, 62. Previously bankrupt and married to the late Robert Thompson for only 3 years before his sudden death. I closed the blinds and called David. They're playing dirty, he said. Expected. Don't talk to any reporters. Don't post on social media. Don't respond to any communications except through me. Can you do that? Yes. Good, because the hearing is Friday. We need you calm and credible. Thursday night, I couldn't sleep. I kept replaying Richard's words. You're not family. You're not anything. Around 2 a.m., Patricia texted me. Patricia, you okay? Me. Can't sleep. Patricia. Me neither. Want to know something? Me what? Patricia. Richard came to the office today. Tried to go through Robert's files. I told him he needed authorization from the estate executor. He threatened to fire me. I smiled and said, You can't fire me. You're not the owner, Patricia. The look on his face. Margaret. God, it was beautiful. I laughed out loud in my dark bedroom, the first time I'd laughed since Robert died. Me. Thank you. For everything. Patricia, we're going to win. Robert believed in you. So do I. Friday, March 27th. Sacramento County Superior Court, Department 18. Judge Amanda Chen presiding. David had prepped me for hours. Keep your answers short. Yes or no when possible. Don't get emotional. Don't engage with their provocations. You're there to present facts, nothing more. The courtroom was smaller than I expected. Wood paneling, fluorescent lights, a California state flag in the corner. Richard sat with his lawyers, 3 of them, all in expensive suits. Marcus sat beside him, looking smug. Caroline was there too, her expression unreadable. Judge Chen entered. We all stood. This is a hearing for emergency relief in the matter of the estate of Robert Thompson, case number 2025 PR 001847, with associated petition for civil restraining order. Counsel for petitioner, please proceed. David stood. Your Honor, this case is straightforward. Robert Thompson died on March 15th, leaving behind a valid will and documented stock ownership transfer that gives his widow, Margaret Thompson, majority control of Thompson Sterling Technologies. Within 4 days of his death, Robert's business partner, Marcus Sterling, and Robert's son, Richard Thompson, began a coordinated effort to defraud Mrs. Thompson of her rightful inheritance through intimidation, bribery, and suppression of evidence. Richard's lead lawyer, a silver-haired man named Bernard Ashford, stood. Your Honor, these are inflammatory accusations with zero basis, in fact. Mrs. Thompson, who was married to the deceased for a mere 3 years and has no business experience whatsoever, is attempting a cash grab using fraudulent documents. This stock certificate, he held it up dramatically, is a forgery. Our handwriting experts will testify that Robert Thompson's signature was forged, likely by Mrs. Thompson herself or her co-conspirator, Patricia Chen. That's a lie, Patricia said from the gallery. Judge Chen banged her gavel. Quiet in the courtroom. For the next 2 hours, it was a battle of experts and evidence. David presented the stock certificate, Robert's letter, Patricia's testimony about the bribe attempt, email records from Marcus showing coordination with Richard to handle the widow situation. Bernard presented competing handwriting analysis claiming forgery, financial records showing I'd been strategically unemployed during my marriage to Robert, testimony from Richard painting me as manipulative and gold-digging. Then came Caroline. Bernard called her to the stand. Ms. Thompson, how would you describe your father's relationship with Margaret? Caroline hesitated. She looked at me, then away. It was complicated. Complicated how? Dad was grieving my mother when they met. Margaret moved very fast. They were married within 3 months. Richard and I, we worried she was taking advantage of his loneliness. My chest tightened. Did your father ever discuss business ownership with you? Bernard asked. Yes. He told me and Richard that we'd inherit his shares. He said it multiple times over the years. Thompson Sterling was supposed to stay in the family, his children, his legacy. Did he ever mention changing that plan? No, never, Bernard nodded. No further questions. David stood for cross-examination. Ms. Thompson, when was the last time you spoke with your father about business matters? Caroline frowned. I'm not sure. Maybe 6 months before he died? So December 2024 at the earliest? Around then, yes. And are you aware that in December 2024, your father finalized the stock transfer that forms the basis of this case? No, but are you aware that your father and Marcus Sterling had a contentious relationship regarding a $5 million loan from 2008? I knew they had disagreements, but did your father ever tell you that Marcus was fighting him on repayment? That it had been a 16-year battle? No. So would it be fair to say that your father didn't discuss every business decision with you? Caroline's voice was small. No, he didn't. In fact, isn't it true that you and your brother were upset when your father married Margaret, and that you've had minimal contact with her since the wedding? Tears welled in Caroline's eyes. We were protecting our father. From a woman he loved? A woman he married voluntarily? A woman he trusted enough to name in his will and protect with stock ownership? David's voice was gentle but firm. Or were you protecting your expected inheritance? Objection. Bernard shouted. Badgering! Sustained, Judge Chen said. Move on, Mr. Yun, David nodded. No further questions, but then something happened that I'll never forget. During the afternoon recess, I was in the hallway with David and Patricia, going over notes for the next session when Marcus approached. He was alone. His lawyers were still inside. Richard was on his phone by the windows. Marcus stopped 3 feet from me. Up close, I could see the strain around his eyes, the tightness in his jaw. Margaret, he said quietly. Mr. Sterling. I kept my voice neutral. This is your last chance to walk away gracefully. Drop the petition, accept a cash settlement, let's say $5 million, and disappear. Everyone wins. You get paid, the company stays intact, and we avoid dragging Robert's name through the mud. David stepped forward. Mr. Sterling, you're violating— Marcus held up a hand. Let her answer. Margaret, $5 million, tax-free, today, final offer. I looked at him, this man who'd been Robert's partner for 38 years, who'd given a eulogy about integrity and vision, who'd clapped my shoulder and said Robert loved you while plotting to erase me. Let me tell you something about Robert, I said slowly. Every Sunday morning he'd make pancakes. Terrible pancakes, always burned on one side. And every Sunday I'd eat them and tell him they were delicious. You know why? Marcus frowned. What does— Because that's what you do when you love someone. You see them, flaws and all, and you choose them anyway. Robert saw me. He knew about my bankruptcy, about my struggles, about every mistake I've ever made. And he married me anyway. He trusted me with his company, his legacy, his children's inheritance, not because I tricked him, but because he believed I'd protect it better than they would. I stepped closer. So here's my answer to your $5 million. Go to hell. And when we're done here, when that gavel comes down and Judge Chen confirms what we both know is true, I want you to remember this moment. I want you to remember that you tried to buy me off, just like you tried to buy Patricia off, and we both told you the same thing. Marcus's face went red. You're going to regret— Mr. Sterling. Judge Chen's bailiff appeared. We're resuming. Inside. Now. Marcus stormed back into the courtroom. Patricia squeezed my arm. That was amazing. David looked concerned. That was risky. Don't provoke them. I'm done being quiet, I said. Judge Chen called the courtroom to order for final arguments. Bernard went first, spending 20 minutes painting me as a conniving gold digger who'd manipulated a grieving widower. He showed financial records, character witnesses, psychological profiles. He made me sound like a monster. Then David stood. Your Honor, I'd like to submit new evidence. Bernard frowned. We weren't notified of new evidence. It came to light during the recess, David said smoothly. He handed documents to the bailiff, who passed them to the judge. These are financial records from Marcus Sterling's offshore accounts, obtained through subpoena by the probate court investigator. They show a pattern of financial impropriety dating back 15 years, including embezzlement of company funds, tax fraud, and unauthorized distributions to himself and Richard Thompson. The courtroom erupted. Your Honor, this is outrageous, Bernard started. It gets better, David continued. These records also show a $2 million withdrawal on March 21st, 2 days after Robert's funeral, marked as consultant fee but with a notation in Mr. Sterling's personal records saying PC settlement. Patricia Chen, the bribe attempt. Marcus had documented his own crime. Judge Chen leaned forward. Mr. Ashford, does your client wish to respond to these allegations? Bernard and Marcus huddled, whispering furiously. Marcus's face was purple with rage. Finally, Bernard stood. We request a continuance to review. Denied, Judge Chen said sharply. Mr. Yun, continue. David presented page after page. Money laundering, tax evasion, fraudulent reporting to shareholders. A decade and a half of Marcus Sterling stealing from the company he claimed to protect. And here's the key point, Your Honor, David said. Robert Thompson discovered this. That's why he demanded the stock transfer in December. That's why he was planning to remove Marcus from the board. That's why Marcus has been desperate to prevent Mrs. Thompson from taking control, because she'll expose everything. Richard stood up. This is insane. You're accusing my father's partner. Sit down, Mr. Thompson, Judge Chen ordered, but Richard didn't sit down. He turned to Marcus. Is this true? Have you been stealing from the company? Marcus said nothing. Oh my God. Richard's voice cracked. Dad knew. That's why he was pulling away from you. That's why he stopped inviting you to family dinners. That's why... He looked at me, really looked at me for the first time since the funeral. He was protecting the company from you. Richard, shut up, Marcus hissed, but the damage was done. Judge Chen banged her gavel. I've heard enough. This court recognizes Margaret Thompson as the legitimate majority shareholder of Thompson Sterling Technologies, with 51% ownership through community property inheritance. The emergency restraining order is granted. Marcus Sterling and Richard Thompson are prohibited from making any corporate decisions or accessing company finances pending a full investigation into the allegations of embezzlement and fraud. This court also orders the immediate appointment of a forensic accountant to review all company records dating back 15 years. She looked directly at Marcus. Mr. Sterling, I strongly suggest you retain criminal counsel. This hearing is adjourned, but I still didn't know the worst part, because 3 days later, Patricia called me at 11 p.m., her voice shaking. Margaret, you need to come to the office. Now. There's something you have to see. What is it? I found Robert's backup files, the ones he kept encrypted on a private server. Patricia's voice cracked. Margaret, Marcus wasn't just stealing money. He was planning to kill the company. I drove to Thompson Sterling's headquarters in Roseville at midnight, my hands shaking on the wheel of Robert's old Tesla. My Tesla now, I supposed. The building was dark except for one office on the 3rd floor, Robert's corner office, where Patricia had been working late ever since the hearing. She let me in through the side entrance. I've been going through Robert's encrypted files, she explained as we rode the elevator up. He backed up everything to a private server with military-grade encryption. I only got in because he'd given me the emergency access key last year. He said if anything happened to him, I should make sure someone trustworthy got this information. What information? The elevator dinged. 3rd floor. Patricia led me to Robert's office. His desk was covered with printed documents, highlighted in yellow and pink, sticky notes everywhere. His computer screen showed spreadsheets, emails, financial records. Sit down, Patricia said. I sat. Marcus Sterling has been systematically draining Thompson Sterling for 15 years, Patricia began. But it's worse than embezzlement. He's been running a parallel operation, a shell company called Sterling Solutions Group, based in Delaware. Every major client we have, Marcus has been secretly routing their payments through Sterling Solutions first, taking 15% off the top, then sending the rest to Thompson Sterling. My stomach dropped. How much money? $47 million. Over 15 years? Patricia pulled up a spreadsheet. But here's where it gets really dark. Last year, Marcus started negotiating to sell Thompson Sterling to MedTech Dynamics, a conglomerate that specializes in buying healthcare software companies and gutting them for parts. They'd keep the patents, offshore the development team, and lay off 90% of the staff, including everyone in Sacramento. 230 jobs gone. But Robert didn't know. Not at first. Marcus handled all the acquisition talks in secret, planning to present it as a done deal to the board. But Robert found out in November, 2 months before he died. That's when he started the investigation, gathered the evidence, forced Marcus to sign over the 1% stock transfer in December. Patricia's voice dropped to a whisper. Margaret, I found emails from January. Marcus to his lawyer. He wrote, Robert's becoming a liability. We need to accelerate the timeline before he exposes everything. If necessary, we'll declare him mentally incompetent and force a board vote. Mentally incompetent? Robert. There's more. Patricia clicked to another email, dated February 10th. Marcus to Richard. Your father's health is declining. When he's gone, we'll position you as the rightful heir and push the widow out. She'll be too emotional to fight. We'll have 6 months, maybe a year, before anyone looks at the books closely enough to notice the Sterling Solutions transfers. By then, the MedTech deal will be closed and we'll be in the Cayman Islands with our payout. I felt sick. Richard knew? Richard knew everything. He was in on it from the beginning. The sale to MedTech would have made him $30 million personally. Marcus promised him a consulting fee from the acquisition. Patricia's hands were shaking. They were planning to destroy your husband's company, steal millions, and leave 230 people unemployed. And when Robert figured it out, She stopped. I looked at her. They what? Patricia pulled up one final email, dated March 12th, 3 days before Robert's heart attack, from Marcus Sterling to Dr. Harold Kensington. Subject: medication adjustment. Harold: per our discussion, please adjust RT's blood pressure medication as discussed. The new dosage should take effect within 72 hours. Let's schedule his follow-up for next week. M. Harold Kensington is Marcus's college roommate, Patricia said quietly. He's also Robert's cardiologist. The room spun. Are you saying? I'm saying Robert was on a stable medication regimen for 10 years. Then, 3 days before his fatal heart attack, his dosage was changed. I checked with the pharmacy. The prescription came from Dr. Kensington's office, but Robert never had an appointment scheduled. He didn't know his medication was changed. My voice came out as a whisper. They killed him. I can't prove it. But Margaret, the timing, the coordination, the emails about acceleration. Patricia's eyes filled with tears. I think they murdered him. I think Marcus convinced Kensington to alter Robert's prescription, knowing his heart couldn't handle it, knowing the stress of fighting the MedTech deal would trigger a cardiac event. I couldn't breathe. The room was too small, too hot, too suffocating. Robert's heart attack. The sudden collapse. The doctors saying it was unexpected but not uncommon in men his age with previous cardiac history. But it wasn't unexpected. It was planned. We need to call the police, I said. I already did. There's a detective coming in the morning, investigator Sarah Chen from the Sacramento DA's white-collar crime unit. She's bringing the coroner's office to request exhumation and toxicology tests. Patricia grabbed my hands. Margaret, this is bigger than the company now. This is murder, conspiracy, corporate fraud at the highest level. And Richard? The office door slammed open. Richard stood in the doorway, his face twisted with rage. You couldn't just take your settlement and disappear, could you? Patricia moved in front of me. Richard, you need to leave, now. Or what? You'll call security? He laughed, stepping into the office. I am security. This is my company. My father's company, not hers. Never hers. His eyes were wild, unfocused. In his right hand, I noticed his phone. Screen lit up. Recording. Richard, whatever you're thinking, I started. Shut up. He pointed at the computer screen, at Patricia's spreadsheets full of evidence. You think you're so smart, don't you? Going through his files. Playing detective, but you don't understand what you've found. We understand perfectly, Patricia said coldly. We understand that you and Marcus have been stealing from this company for years. That you planned to sell it and destroy 200 jobs. That you changed Robert's medication. That was Marcus, Richard shouted. That wasn't me. I didn't know about Kensington until after. I swear to God, Margaret, I didn't know he was going to... His voice cracked. I didn't know. For the first time since the funeral, I saw something human in Richard's eyes. Guilt. But you knew about the theft, I said quietly. You knew about Sterling Solutions Group. You knew about the MedTech sale. Richard's shoulders sagged. Dad was going to destroy everything. He was going to shut down the MedTech deal, fire Marcus, restructure the entire company. We would have lost millions. I would have lost my position, my legacy, everything I'd worked for. Marcus said we could salvage it if we just got Dad out of the way. Got him out of the way, I repeated. Your father. The man who built this company from nothing. The man who loved you. He loved you more. Richard's rage returned. He changed everything for you. The will, the stock transfer, His whole succession plan? All because some widow batted her eyes at him in a grocery store. You were supposed to be temporary, a phase. But he was going to leave you half of everything and leave me fighting with Marcus for scraps. So you decided to kill him? My voice was ice. I didn't decide anything. Marcus decided. Marcus did it. I didn't stop him. Richard's hand shook. And now you're going to destroy me. The police, the investigation, the murder charge. I'll spend the rest of my life in prison because my father couldn't keep his dick in his pants. Get out, Patricia said. Not until I get those files. Richard moved toward the computer. Delete everything. All of it. Right now, or you'll what? I stood up, stepping between him and the computer. Hit me? Threaten me? Kill me too? We stood there, 3 feet apart, and I saw my husband in his eyes. The same gray-blue, the same shape. But where Robert had warmth, Richard had poison. I could make this go away, he said suddenly. I could testify against Marcus. Say he acted alone, that I knew nothing about the medication change. The DA would give me immunity in exchange for cooperation. Marcus goes to prison for murder and fraud. I walk free with probation. You get your company. He leaned closer. Everyone wins. Except Robert, I said. Robert's dead. He doesn't care anymore. I care. My voice was steady now, clear. I care that you conspired to steal from his company. I care that you stood by while Marcus planned his murder. I care that you threatened me at his funeral, tried to bribe his secretary, and just now broke into this office to destroy evidence. And most of all, Richard, I care that you're standing here trying to save your own skin while your father is in the ground because of you. Richard's face went white. You self-righteous bitch. You think you're so noble. You married a man 30 years older than you for his money. I was 59 when I married your father. He was 62. Try again. And now you're going to use this tragedy to play victim and steal what's rightfully mine. What's rightfully yours? I stepped closer. You mean the company your father built? The one you were actively destroying? The employees you were going to fire? The legacy you were willing to sell for $30 million? I was securing our future. You were betraying your father. I shouted, and the room went silent. When I spoke again, my voice was low, dangerous. Your father left me 51% of this company because he knew that you weren't capable of running it. That you cared more about money than people, more about winning than doing what's right. He gave me control because he trusted me to protect what he built, to protect the employees, to protect his real legacy. Not the bank account, not the stock price, the people. Richard's jaw clenched. You'll regret this. No, I said. You will. The elevator dinged in the hallway. Richard's head snapped toward the sound. Heavy footsteps. Multiple people. Sacramento police, a voice called out. We have a warrant for evidence collection. Patricia smiled. I called them before you got here. They've been listening to this whole conversation. Richard's face went from white to gray. He looked at his phone, still recording, and realized his confession had been captured. Not by him. By us. 3 officers entered the office, Detective Sarah Chen in the lead. Richard Thompson? She said. I want a lawyer, Richard whispered. Smart choice. Detective Chen gestured to her officers. Richard Thompson, you're under arrest for conspiracy to commit murder, accessory to murder, embezzlement, wire fraud, and obstruction of justice. You have the right to remain silent. I watched them cuff him, watched them read him his rights, watched the realization dawn in his eyes that his life as he knew it was over. As they led him to the elevator, he looked back at me one last time. He loved you, Richard said quietly. At the end, he really did love you, and I hated him for it. Then he was gone. The exhumation happened 2 weeks later. I didn't attend. I couldn't watch them dig up my husband's body, couldn't watch them extract tissue samples and run toxicology tests. Patricia went with Detective Chen to observe and ensure chain of custody. I stayed home in the garden Robert and I had planted together. Tomatoes were starting to come in. Early Girls, his favorite. I picked one still warm from the sun and bit into it. Tart and sweet, seeds running down my chin. Robert would have laughed at me, told me I was supposed to slice them first. Patricia called me at 4 p.m. "They found it," she said, her voice tight. Digitalis, massive dose, 11 times the normal concentration in his system. Combined with his beta blockers, it triggered arrhythmia and cardiac arrest. Digitalis, a heart medication that, in the right dose, regulates rhythm. In the wrong dose, kills. "Marcus?" I asked. Dr. Kensington flipped. "Cut a deal with the DA. Full testimony in exchange for medical license suspension instead of criminal charges. He says Marcus asked him to adjust Robert's prescription, told him Robert had been experiencing symptoms and needed a dosage increase. Kensington trusted him, didn't verify with Robert directly. Marcus picked up the prescription himself, gave it to Robert, told him his doctor had called in a refill. Robert trusted him, I said. Yes. He trusted his partner of 38 years. And Marcus poisoned him. Yes. I looked at the tomato plants. The garden stakes with Robert's careful handwriting labeling each variety. Cherokee Purple, Brandywine, San Marzano. When's the arraignment? I asked, tomorrow morning. Marcus and Richard both. The DA's charging them with first-degree murder, conspiracy, fraud, embezzlement. 14 counts total. If convicted, they're looking at life without parole. Good. Patricia was quiet for a moment. How are you holding up? I'm angry, I said honestly. I thought I'd feel relieved or vindicated or something, but I just feel angry. They took him from me. Not cancer, not old age, not even a random heart attack. They murdered him because he was in their way, because he was going to do the right thing. Margaret, and you know what makes me angriest? Richard had the nerve to say his father loved me like it was a crime. Like Robert choosing to love me, to trust me, to give me power. Like that was the real betrayal. Not the theft, not the murder, the love. My voice broke. I would have given anything for 10 more years with him. Hell, 10 more days. But they took that from me. They took our future, our plans, our life together. And for what? Money they didn't need? A company they were going to destroy anyway. Patricia didn't say anything. She just stayed on the line, breathing with me, while I cried in my dead husband's garden. Finally, I wiped my eyes. What happens now? To the company? You're the majority shareholder. You control the board. The forensic accountants have frozen all of Marcus's assets and reversed the Sterling Solutions Group transfers. We recovered $31 million so far, with more coming. The MedTech deal is dead. You have full authority to restructure, hire new leadership, whatever you want. What I want is impossible, I said. I want my husband back. I know. But Margaret, 230 employees still have jobs because of you. Robert's legacy is intact because of you. That has to mean something. It did mean something, just not enough. But then Caroline called. It was 7 p.m., 3 days before the arraignment. I almost didn't answer. I'd heard from Richard's lawyer that Caroline was planning to testify for the defense, to paint Marcus as a manipulator and Richard as an innocent victim. I wasn't sure I could handle hearing her voice. But I answered. Margaret? Caroline's voice was small, raw. Can I come over, please? I need to talk to you. 20 minutes later, she was sitting in my living room holding a cup of tea she wasn't drinking. I'm not testifying for Richard, she said immediately. I told his lawyer to go to hell, I blinked. What changed? I went through my father's things. The boxes from his office that Patricia sent to my house. I found... She pulled a letter from her purse, hands shaking. I found this. It's dated March 1st, 2 weeks before he died. It's addressed to me. She handed it to me. Caroline, I know you're angry about Margaret. I know you think I'm replacing your mother, or betraying her memory, or losing my mind in my old age. But I need you to understand something. Your mother was the love of my first life. 32 beautiful years. She gave me you and Richard, and I'll be grateful to her until my last breath. When she died, I thought I was done. That the best of my life was over. Then I met Margaret, and I learned something. We don't have one great love. We have seasons of love, And if we're lucky, we get more than one season. Margaret is the love of my second life. She's different from your mom, quieter, more careful, wounded in ways your mother never was. She's been through hell and survived. She's strong, Caroline. Stronger than Richard gives her credit for. Stronger than I realized at first. I'm leaving her majority control of the company because I trust her judgment more than I trust Richard's ambition. I know that sounds harsh, but your brother has been making decisions I can't support, siding with Marcus on things I've specifically voted against, pushing for quarterly profits over long-term stability, treating employees like numbers instead of people. Margaret will protect what I built. She'll protect the workers, the mission, the values. And if I'm wrong, if she turns out to be the gold digger you think she is, then the company was never as important as I thought it was. But I'm not wrong. And someday, when you've had time to grieve and think clearly, you'll see what I see. A woman who loved me for me, not my money. A woman who made terrible pancakes and laughed when I burned them. A woman who held my hand during scary doctor appointments and didn't ask for anything in return. I love you, sweetheart. I always will. But I love her too. Both things can be true. Dad Caroline was crying silently, tears streaming down her face. He knew, she whispered. He knew Richard was involved with Marcus's schemes. He knew, and he was trying to protect the company from his own son. And God, Margaret, I stood in that courtroom and lied. I said he never mentioned changing his succession plan, but he did. He sent me this letter and I ignored it because I was so angry, so hurt that he'd chosen you over us. Caroline, I'm so sorry. She looked at me, really looked at me, for the first time. I'm sorry for how I treated you at the wedding, at the funeral, in court. You didn't deserve any of it. You loved my father, and he loved you. And I was so busy being angry that I couldn't see it. I set down my teacup, moved to sit beside her, pulled her into a hug. She sobbed into my shoulder like a child. He wrote me a letter, too, I said quietly. The one Patricia had. He said I was stronger than I thought. And you know what? I didn't believe him. I thought he was just being kind, seeing me through rose-colored glasses. But now I think he saw something I didn't see in myself. Caroline pulled back, wiping her eyes. What? That I could survive this. All of it. The grief, the betrayal, the fight. He knew what was coming. Maybe not the murder, but the battle for the company, the ugliness with Marcus and Richard. And he believed I could handle it. Can you? Caroline asked. I don't know, but I'm going to try. I squeezed her hand. And Caroline, I'm not trying to replace your mother. I'm not trying to take anything from you or Richard. I'm just trying to protect what your father built. That's all. I know. She took a shaky breath. What happens now? To the company? I don't know yet. I've been so focused on the criminal case that I haven't thought past it. But I know I need help. I'm not a businesswoman. I don't know software development or client relations or any of it. I'm just a widow trying to do right by her husband's memory. Caroline was quiet for a long moment. Richard's jaw clenched. You'll regret this. No, I said. You will. The elevator dinged in the hallway. Richard's head snapped toward the sound. Heavy footsteps. Multiple people. Sacramento police, a voice called out. We have a warrant for evidence collection. Patricia smiled. I called them before you got here. They've been listening to this whole conversation. Richard's face went from white to gray. He looked at his phone, still recording, and realized his confession had been captured. Not by him. By us. 3 officers entered the office, Detective Sarah Chen in the lead. Richard Thompson? She said. I want a lawyer, Richard whispered. Smart choice. Detective Chen gestured to her officers. Richard Thompson, you're under arrest for conspiracy to commit murder, accessory to murder, embezzlement, wire fraud, and obstruction of justice. You have the right to remain silent. I watched them cuff him, watched them read him his rights, watched the realization dawn in his eyes that his life as he knew it was over. As they led him to the elevator, he looked back at me one last time. He loved you, Richard said quietly. At the end, he really did love you, and I hated him for it. Then he was gone. The exhumation happened 2 weeks later. I didn't attend. I couldn't watch them dig up my husband's body, couldn't watch them extract tissue samples and run toxicology tests. Patricia went with Detective Chen to observe and ensure chain of custody. I stayed home in the garden Robert and I had planted together. Tomatoes were starting to come in. Early girls, his favorite. I picked one still warm from the sun and bit into it. Tart and sweet, seeds running down my chin. Robert would have laughed at me, told me I was supposed to slice them first. Patricia called me at 4 p.m. "They found it," she said, her voice tight. Digitalis, massive dose, 11 times the normal concentration in his system. Combined with his beta blockers, it triggered arrhythmia and cardiac arrest. Digitalis, a heart medication that, in the right dose, regulates rhythm. In the wrong dose, kills. "Marcus?" I asked. Dr. Kensington flipped. "Cut a deal with the DA. Full testimony in exchange for medical license suspension instead of criminal charges. He says Marcus asked him to adjust Robert's prescription, told him Robert had been experiencing symptoms and needed a dosage increase. Kensington trusted him, didn't verify with Robert directly. Marcus picked up the prescription himself, gave it to Robert, told him his doctor had called in a refill. Robert trusted him, I said. Yes. He trusted his partner of 38 years. And Marcus poisoned him. Yes. I looked at the tomato plants. The garden stakes with Robert's careful handwriting labeling each variety. Cherokee Purple, Brandywine, San Marzano. When's the arraignment? I asked, tomorrow morning. Marcus and Richard both. The DA's charging them with first-degree murder, conspiracy, fraud, embezzlement. 14 counts total. If convicted, they're looking at life without parole. Good. Patricia was quiet for a moment. How are you holding up? I'm angry, I said honestly. I thought I'd feel relieved or vindicated or something, but I just feel angry. They took him from me. Not cancer, not old age, not even a random heart attack. They murdered him because he was in their way, because he was going to do the right thing. Margaret, and you know what makes me angriest? Richard had the nerve to say his father loved me like it was a crime. Like Robert choosing to love me, to trust me, to give me power. Like that was the real betrayal. Not the theft, not the murder, the love. My voice broke. I would have given anything for 10 more years with him. Hell, 10 more days. But they took that from me. They took our future, our plans, our life together. And for what? Money they didn't need? A company they were going to destroy anyway. Patricia didn't say anything. She just stayed on the line, breathing with me, while I cried in my dead husband's garden. Finally, I wiped my eyes. What happens now? To the company? You're the majority shareholder. You control the board. The forensic accountants have frozen all of Marcus's assets and reversed the Sterling Solutions Group transfers. We recovered $31 million so far, with more coming. The MedTech deal is dead. You have full authority to restructure, hire new leadership, whatever you want. What I want is impossible, I said. I want my husband back. I know. But Margaret, 230 employees still have jobs because of you. Robert's legacy is intact because of you. That has to mean something. It did mean something, just not enough. But then Caroline called. It was 7 p.m., 3 days before the arraignment. I almost didn't answer. I'd heard from Richard's lawyer that Caroline was planning to testify for the defense, to paint Marcus as a manipulator and Richard as an innocent victim. I wasn't sure I could handle hearing her voice. But I answered. Margaret? Caroline's voice was small, raw. Can I come over, please? I need to talk to you. 20 minutes later, she was sitting in my living room holding a cup of tea she wasn't drinking. I'm not testifying for Richard, she said immediately. I told his lawyer to go to hell, I blinked. What changed? I went through my father's things. The boxes from his office that Patricia sent to my house. I found... She pulled a letter from her purse, hands shaking. I found this. It's dated March 1st, 2 weeks before he died. It's addressed to me. She handed it to me. Caroline, I know you're angry about Margaret. I know you think I'm replacing your mother, or betraying her memory, or losing my mind in my old age. But I need you to understand something. Your mother was the love of my first life. 32 beautiful years. She gave me you and Richard, and I'll be grateful to her until my last breath. When she died, I thought I was done, that the best of my life was over. Then I met Margaret, and I learned something. We don't have one great love. We have seasons of love, and if we're lucky, we get more than one season. Margaret is the love of my second life. She's different from your mom, quieter, more careful, wounded in ways your mother never was. She's been through hell and survived. She's strong, Caroline, stronger than Richard gives her credit for. Stronger than I realized at first. I'm leaving her majority control of the company because I trust her judgment more than I trust Richard's ambition. I know that sounds harsh, but your brother has been making decisions I can't support, siding with Marcus on things I've specifically voted against, pushing for quarterly profits over long-term stability, treating employees like numbers instead of people. Margaret will protect what I built. She'll protect the workers, the mission, the values. And if I'm wrong, if she turns out to be the gold digger you think she is, then the company was never as important as I thought it was. But I'm not wrong. And someday, when you've had time to grieve and think clearly, you'll see what I see. A woman who loved me for me, not my money. A woman who made terrible pancakes and laughed when I burned them. A woman who held my hand during scary doctor appointments and didn't ask for anything in return. I love you, sweetheart. I always will. But I love her too. Both things can be true. Dad Caroline was crying silently, tears streaming down her face. He knew, she whispered. He knew Richard was involved with Marcus's schemes. He knew, and he was trying to protect the company from his own son. And God, Margaret, I stood in that courtroom and lied. I said he never mentioned changing his succession plan, but he did. He sent me this letter and I ignored it because I was so angry, so hurt that he'd chosen you over us. Caroline, I'm so sorry. She looked at me, really looked at me, for the first time. I'm sorry for how I treated you at the wedding, at the funeral, in court. You didn't deserve any of it. You loved my father, and he loved you. And I was so busy being angry that I couldn't see it. I set down my teacup, moved to sit beside her, pulled her into a hug. She sobbed into my shoulder like a child. He wrote me a letter, too, I said quietly. The one Patricia had. He said I was stronger than I thought. And you know what? I didn't believe him. I thought he was just being kind, seeing me through rose-colored glasses. But now I think he saw something I didn't see in myself. Caroline pulled back, wiping her eyes. What? That I could survive this. All of it. The grief, the betrayal, the fight. He knew what was coming. Maybe not the murder, but the battle for the company, the ugliness with Marcus and Richard. And he believed I could handle it. Can you? Caroline asked. I don't know, but I'm going to try. I squeezed her hand. And Caroline, I'm not trying to replace your mother. I'm not trying to take anything from you or Richard. I'm just trying to protect what your father built. That's all. I know. She took a shaky breath. What happens now? To the company? I don't know yet. I've been so focused on the criminal case that I haven't thought past it. But I know I need help. I'm not a businesswoman. I don't know software development or client relations or any of it. I'm just a widow trying to do right by her husband's memory. Caroline was quiet for a long moment. The box contained something I bought 3 weeks after we met. I was going to give it to you on our 10th anniversary, but just in case I don't make it that long, I want you to have it now. I love you, Maggie. Whatever happens next, know that you were the joy of my last years. You made me laugh. You made me feel young. You made me remember that life is about more than board meetings and profit margins. Go live your life. Fall in love again if you want to. Travel. Write that novel you talked about. Adopt 12 cats. Whatever makes you happy. You've earned it. All my love, RPS. Keep Patricia close. She's family. Treat her like family. I opened the velvet box with tears streaming down my face. Inside was a necklace. White gold chain with a single pendant, a compass, delicate and detailed, with a tiny diamond at the north point. There was a note tucked beneath it. So you always know which direction is home. I put it on. Right there, sitting in a pile of boxes in Robert's office, wearing yoga pants and his old Stanford sweatshirt, I put on the necklace and I laughed and cried at the same time. He'd known. 6 months before he died, he'd known that Marcus was planning something, that he might not survive, that I'd need strength and direction and proof that he'd believed in me. And he'd left me a compass. 2 days later, I called a company-wide meeting, all 230 employees, from senior developers to administrative assistants, packed into Thompson Sterling's largest conference room. Patricia stood beside me. Caroline sat in the front row. I'd practiced this speech for hours. Torn up 5 drafts, stayed up until 3 a.m. rewriting it. But standing there, looking at faces I was just beginning to know, I threw away the script. "My name is Margaret Thompson," I said. 6 months ago, I'd never set foot in this building. I knew nothing about healthcare software, nothing about running a company, nothing about board meetings or profit margins or any of it. I was just Robert Thompson's wife, the woman who married the boss. Uncomfortable, shifting in the audience. Now I'm your boss. And I'm terrified. Nervous laughter. I have no idea what I'm doing. I don't know code. I don't know software development. I barely understand what half of you do all day. But here's what I do know. My husband built this company on a simple principle: that technology should help people, not hurt them. That healthcare should be about healing, not profit. That employees aren't resources to be exploited. They're people with families and mortgages and dreams. I paused. Marcus Sterling and Richard Thompson forgot that. They saw this company as a piggy bank, as something to loot and sell and walk away from. They didn't care that selling to MedTech Dynamics would have meant layoffs. They didn't care that 230 families would have been destroyed. They cared about their payout, but Robert cared. And I care. And as long as I'm the majority shareholder of this company, we're not going to chase quarterly profits at the expense of people. We're not going to offshore jobs to save money. We're not going to cut corners or sacrifice quality or treat clients like numbers on a spreadsheet. I looked around the room. We're going to do what Robert Thompson wanted: build software that saves lives, pay fair wages, treat each other with respect, and run this company like it matters, because it does matter, to your families, to our clients, to the thousands of patients whose health data we manage. I took a breath. I'm asking you to trust me. I'm asking you to be patient while I learn. I'm asking you to help me build something that would make Robert proud. And in return, I promise I'll fight for you. I'll protect your jobs. I'll listen to your ideas. I'll make this company somewhere you're proud to work. Silence. Then someone in the back started clapping. Slowly at first, then others joined. Within seconds, the entire room was applauding. Patricia squeezed my shoulder. Caroline gave me a thumbs up, and I thought, okay, Robert, I've got this. We've got this. November brought the first real test. Our biggest client, Medicore Systems, a healthcare network managing 12 hospitals across Northern California, requested an emergency meeting. Their contract was up for renewal in December, representing 18% of Thompson Sterling's annual revenue. Losing them would mean layoffs, cuts, everything I'd promised to prevent. The meeting was set for November 14th at their headquarters in San Francisco. Me, Caroline, Patricia, and our head of client relations, a woman named Jennifer Park who'd been with the company for 15 years. The night before, Jennifer pulled me aside. "Margaret, you need to know what you're walking into. Medicore's CTO is Blake Harrison. He and Marcus Sterling were golf buddies. Blake's been vocal about not wanting to work with new leadership. His words. He thinks you're unqualified." My stomach sank. "Why didn't you tell me earlier?" "Because I wanted to see if you could handle the normal stuff first." "But tomorrow's not normal." Jennifer's expression was grim. "Blake's going to try to embarrass you, grill you on technical details you can't possibly know, make you look incompetent in front of his board. Then he'll offer to renew the contract, but only if you step down and appoint someone more qualified as CEO." "Someone like Richard?" I asked. "Someone like whoever Blake wants in his pocket." Jennifer shook her head. "Marcus had Blake on the payroll, Margaret. We found the records during the forensic audit, $50,000 a year in consulting fees that were really kickbacks. Blake was helping Marcus inflate our pricing, overcharge Medicor, and split the excess. Now that Marcus is gone, Blake's panicking. He wants someone he can control. What do I do? Jennifer smiled slowly. You do what Robert would do. You come prepared, you stay calm, and you remind Blake Harrison that he's not as smart as he thinks he is. The meeting room at Medicor's headquarters was intimidating. Glass walls, panoramic views of the bay, leather chairs that probably cost more than my car. Blake Harrison sat at the head of the table, flanked by 4 executives I didn't recognize. Blake was mid-50s, expensive suit, 2 white teeth, the kind of handshake that tried to crush your fingers to prove dominance. Mrs. Thompson, he said, drawing out the Mrs. like it was an insult. Thank you for coming down from Sacramento. I know this is probably all very new for you. I appreciate the meeting, I said evenly. Let's get right to it. Your contract expires December 31st. Medicor has been with Thompson Sterling for 8 years, but we're reconsidering our options. He leaned back in his chair. We need to know that our data management partner has strong leadership. Experienced leadership. No offense, but you're a widow with zero tech background suddenly running a software company. That's concerning. Caroline tensed beside me. Patricia's hand moved toward her laptop. Jennifer stayed perfectly still. I smiled. I understand your concern, Blake. Can I ask you a question? He blinked. Sure. How much did Marcus Sterling pay you over the last 5 years? The room went silent. Blake's face paled. I don't know what you're talking about. $250,000. Paid through a Delaware shell company called Sterling Consulting Group. In exchange, you approved inflated invoices from Thompson Sterling, with Marcus pocketing the overcharges. You were defrauding your own company, Blake, your employer. One of the other executives, a woman I'd later learn was Medicor's CFO, leaned forward. Is this true? Blake stammered. That was a legitimate consulting arrangement. No, it wasn't. I slid a folder across the table. Patricia had prepared it that morning. This contains emails between you and Marcus discussing price inflation, copies of the shell company filings listing you as a partner, and bank records showing transfers that coincide exactly with invoice approvals. It also contains a summary of how much Medicor overpaid for our services over 5 years. $1.2 million. The CFO grabbed the folder, flipping through pages, her expression darkening. Now, I continued, my voice still calm, still pleasant. We can do this 2 ways. Option 1, I send this to your board of directors and your compliance department. They'll investigate, you'll be fired, possibly prosecuted for fraud and kickbacks. Medicor will sue us both and everyone loses. Blake's face was red now, a vein pulsing in his forehead. Option 2, Thompson Sterling refunds Medicor the full $1.2 million of overcharges, with interest. We reduce our contract pricing by 15% going forward, ensuring competitive and transparent rates. You resign quietly, citing personal reasons, and Medicor gets a good deal from an honest partner. Everyone wins except you, but at least you stay out of prison. Blake looked at his CFO. She looked at me. How do we know we can trust you? She asked. Because my husband built this company on integrity, and I'm not going to trash his legacy for short-term profit. Marcus Sterling was corrupt. Blake Harrison was corrupt. I'm not. I met her eyes. You'll get better service, better pricing, and better partnership from me than you ever got from them. And if I'm wrong, you can fire us in 12 months. But give me a chance to prove that Thompson Sterling is worth keeping. The CFO looked at Blake. Clean out your desk. Security will escort you out in 10 minutes. Blake stood, shaking with rage. You self-righteous bitch, Blake. The CFO's voice was ice. Leave, before I call the police. He stormed out. The CFO extended her hand to me. Linda Chen, I've been cleaning up Marcus Sterling's messes for 3 years without realizing it. Thank you for finally giving me proof. I shook her hand. Does this mean we have a deal? It means we have a deal. 12-month contract, 15% price reduction, monthly performance reviews. If Thompson Sterling delivers, we'll renew long-term. If not, she shrugged, then we part ways professionally. Fair enough. As we left the building, Caroline grabbed my arm. Oh my God, that was incredible. How did you know about Blake? Patricia found it during the forensic audit. She's been tracking every dirty deal Marcus made for the last 15 years. Blake was just one of many. Jennifer laughed. You just saved 18% of our revenue and made Blake Harrison wet his pants. Not bad for someone with zero tech background. I might not know software, I said, but I know people. And I know when someone's trying to intimidate me because they're afraid I'll expose them. Patricia smiled. Robert would have loved that. She was right. He would have. December arrived cold and bright. 1 year since Robert had forced Marcus to sign over that crucial 1% share. 9 months since Robert's death. 8 months since I'd walked into that courtroom and fought for what was mine. Thompson Sterling was stable. We'd recovered $38 million of the stolen $47 million. The rest was lost in offshore accounts we'd probably never find. We'd renegotiated contracts with integrity, hired new board members with actual ethics, and started 3 initiatives Robert had dreamed about: a scholarship fund for employees' children, a mental health program for staff, and a pro bono division offering free software to rural hospitals that couldn't afford our services. I still didn't know much about software development, but I'd learned something more important. I knew how to listen, how to trust people smarter than me, how to ask questions without pretending I had all the answers, how to lead with values instead of ego. Caroline had become my partner in every sense. She understood the culture, the people, the history of the company in ways I never could. Together, we made decisions Robert would have been proud of. Some days I'd catch her in his old office, my office now, and she'd be staring at his photo on the shelf, tears in her eyes. We'd have coffee and remember him together. The good and the difficult, the brilliant and the stubborn, the man we both loved in different ways. Patricia was promoted to Chief Operating Officer. At 29, she was the youngest C-suite executive in the company's history. She'd earned it. Without her loyalty, her courage in refusing Marcus's bribe, her meticulous documentation of every crime, none of this would have been possible. On December 18th, exactly 1 year after Robert had secured that stock certificate, I held a company memorial service. We planted a tree in front of the building, a valley oak, native to California, the kind that lives for 300 years. There was a plaque, Robert Thompson, 1962-2025, builder, visionary, protector of people over profits. Every employee came. 230 people whose jobs Robert had saved by trusting me, by planning ahead, by being smarter than the men who tried to destroy him. I stood in front of that tree and told them Robert's story. Not the sanitized version, the real one. How he'd discovered Marcus's betrayal. How he'd fought for 16 years to recover what was stolen. How he'd loved this company not because it made him rich, but because it did good work. How he'd died trying to protect them. Robert Thompson was murdered for having integrity, I said. For refusing to sell out his employees for profit. For standing up to corruption even when it cost him everything. And the men who killed him are in prison now. Because Robert was smart enough to leave behind evidence, brave enough to trust the right people, and loving enough to believe his wife could finish what he started. My voice broke. I miss him every day. I miss his terrible pancakes and his bad jokes and the way he'd fall asleep in his office chair with his glasses crooked. I miss having him here to tell me I'm doing okay. But then I look at you, at all of you, still employed, still proud of your work, still part of something that matters, and I think maybe he's not really gone. Maybe he's here, in every line of code you write, every client you serve, every time you choose to do the right thing instead of the profitable thing. Someone started clapping. Then everyone. 230 people applauding a dead man who'd saved their livelihoods from beyond the grave. Caroline hugged me. He'd be so proud of you. He'd be proud of us, I corrected. That night, I went home to the house in Orangevale. Robert's house. My house now. I made dinner, pasta with those tomatoes from the garden, the ones I'd learned to grow because he'd taught me. I ate alone at the kitchen table, the compass necklace around my neck catching the light. My phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. Unknown. Mrs. Thompson, this is Linda Chen from Medicor. Just wanted to let you know we've decided to sign a 5-year contract instead of 12 months. Your team has been exceptional. Thank you for proving that integrity still exists in this industry. I smiled, typed back, thank you for giving us the chance. Another text, this time from Caroline. Board meeting next week. Jennifer wants to propose expanding the pro bono program. Thoughts? Me. Let's do it. Robert would love that, Caroline. He really would. Love you, Margaret. Me. Love you too, sweetheart. I put down my phone and looked around the kitchen. At the coffee maker Robert used every morning. At the ridiculous rooster-shaped salt shaker he'd bought at a yard sale as a joke. At the photo on the fridge, both of us in Napa Valley, his arm around me. Both of us laughing at something I couldn't even remember. For 9 months, I'd been angry, grieving, fighting, surviving, but sitting there in the quiet house, eating tomatoes from a garden we'd planted together, wearing a compass he'd bought because he knew I'd need direction, leading a company he'd entrusted to me. I realized something. I wasn't just surviving anymore. I was living, not the life I'd planned. Not the life I'd wanted, but a life that meant something. A life where 230 families could pay their mortgages because I'd fought for them. Where corrupt men faced justice. Where Robert's legacy wasn't just a plaque on a wall, but a living, breathing company still doing good work. Was it enough? Did it make up for losing him? No, nothing could, but it was something. And after everything, the betrayal, the murder, the courtroom battles, the fear and doubt and moments I'd wanted to give up, something felt like a lot. I found myself thinking about Richard sometimes. About him in prison, 70 years old before he'd taste freedom again, living with the knowledge that he'd killed his own father for money he'd never spend. Was he sorry? Really sorry? Or just sorry he got caught? I'd never know. And maybe it didn't matter. Caroline visited him once a month. She'd come back quiet, sad, processing whatever complicated feelings you have when your brother destroys your family. I asked her once if Richard ever asked about the company. Every time, she said. He wants to know if we're profitable, if employees are happy, if Dad would be proud. I tell him yes, yes, and yes. And then he cries. Do you forgive him? I asked. Caroline thought for a long time. I don't know. He's my brother. I love him. But he helped kill my father. How do you forgive that? How do you not forgive that? She shook her head. Maybe forgiveness isn't the point. Maybe the point is just learning to live with the broken pieces and building something new anyway. She was wiser than she knew, 21, and already understanding what took me 62 years to learn. That life breaks everyone eventually, and the only real question is what you do with the fragments. Marcus, I never thought about. He was a black hole, a void. Someone so consumed by greed that he'd murdered his best friend of 38 years without hesitation. There was nothing there to understand, nothing to forgive, nothing to salvage. He'd die in prison, and the world would be safer for it. In February, 14 months after Robert died, I did something I'd been avoiding. I started dating. Not seriously. Just coffee with a widower I'd met at a grief support group. A retired teacher named Michael who made me laugh and didn't ask about the company or the trial or anything heavy. We talked about books and travel and the ridiculous birds fighting over the feeder outside the Starbucks window. After the third coffee date, he asked me to dinner. I said yes. That night, I stood in my closet trying to decide what to wear, and I caught myself reaching for the compass necklace. I put it on, looked at myself in the mirror, and heard Robert's voice in my head. Go live your life. Fall in love again if you want to. I don't want to replace you, I said out loud to the empty room. You know that, right? The house was silent. But I felt something, not supernatural, not ghostly, just a quiet sense of permission. Of release. Robert had loved me enough to set me free even after death. The least I could do was honor that by actually being free. Dinner with Michael was nice, easy, uncomplicated. He kissed me goodnight on my doorstep, gentle and respectful, and asked if he could see me again. "I'd like that," I said, and I meant it. 2 years after Robert's death, Thompson Sterling Technologies was thriving. We'd expanded the pro bono program to 15 rural hospitals. The scholarship fund had sent 12 employees' kids to college. Our mental health program had a 98% satisfaction rating and had been featured in Forbes as an example of employee-centered leadership. Revenue was up 23%. Not because we'd cut corners or exploited anyone, but because clients trusted us. Because employees were motivated. Because we'd rebuilt the company on the foundation Robert had always wanted: excellence through integrity. I stood in front of the valley oak tree, now 3 feet taller, branches spreading, and thought about everything that had led to this moment. Richard was still in prison. He'd be eligible for parole in 13 more years. Caroline visited him monthly, and she said he spent his time teaching other inmates to read, working in the prison library, trying to be the man his father had wanted him to be 2 decades too late. Marcus had died 6 months earlier. Heart attack in his cell, 74 years old, alone, unmourned. His obituary in the Sacramento Bee was 3 sentences long and mentioned his conviction before it mentioned his business accomplishments. I didn't go to his funeral. Neither did anyone else from Thompson Sterling. Patricia had gotten married to a software engineer from our development team, a sweet guy named Chris who worshipped the ground she walked on. I'd walked her down the aisle because her father had passed away when she was young and she'd asked me to. "Your family," she'd said. And she was right. Blood doesn't make family. Loyalty does, love does, showing up does. Caroline was dating someone new, a kindergarten teacher named Sam who made her laugh and brought cookies to board meetings. I liked him. Robert would have liked him, and me? I was 64 years old, CEO of a company worth $410 million, wearing a compass necklace and my late husband's wedding ring on a chain beside it. I was dating Michael seriously now. He'd met Caroline and Patricia, had dinner at my house twice a week, held my hand during movies, and didn't ask for more than I could give. I wasn't the grieving widow anymore. I wasn't the gold digger or the interloper or the unqualified replacement. I was Margaret Thompson, CEO, guardian of 230 jobs, protector of Robert's legacy, and most importantly, I was myself. Fully, completely, unapologetically myself. The reporters still called sometimes, wanting updates on the widow who took down a billionaire. I usually declined interviews, but on the 3-year anniversary of Robert's death, I agreed to one, just one. With a journalist from Bloomberg who'd covered the trial and wanted to do a retrospective, she asked me the same question everyone asked: how did you do it? How did a woman with no business experience take control of a tech company and win against seasoned executives with decades of experience and unlimited resources? I thought about all the glib answers I could give, about preparation or luck or good lawyers or Patricia's evidence. But I told her the truth. I did it because someone believed in me when I didn't believe in myself. My husband saw something in me that I couldn't see: strength, resilience, the ability to do hard things and survive. And when he died, I had 2 choices: prove him right or prove his killers right. I could be the weak, grieving widow they expected, easy to manipulate and dismiss. Or I could be the warrior queen in gardening gloves that Robert believed I was. I smiled. I chose to prove him right. And once I made that choice, everything else was just details: paperwork, evidence, legal procedures. Showing up day after day and refusing to quit, even when it was hard, even when I was terrified, even when everyone told me I couldn't win. What would you say to other women in similar situations? She asked. Widows, or women who've been underestimated? Or women fighting powerful men who think they're entitled to everything? I leaned forward. I'd say this: they're counting on you being too scared to fight, too tired, too overwhelmed, too worried about what people think. They're counting on you accepting whatever scraps they offer because fighting seems impossible. But fighting is only impossible if you quit. And you're stronger than you think. Smarter than they believe? More capable than they'll ever admit. I touched the compass necklace. Find your evidence. Build your team. Trust the people who've earned your trust. And when they try to intimidate you, and they will try, remember that their anger is fear. They're afraid of what you'll do when you stop playing by their rules and start playing to win. The article ran 2 weeks later with the headline, "The Widow Who Refused to Disappear, Margaret Thompson and the Fight for Thompson Sterling Technologies." It went viral. Women's groups shared it. Business schools used it as a case study. I got letters, hundreds of them, from widows and daughters and women who'd been underestimated their whole lives, thanking me for showing them it was possible to fight and win. I read every single letter, and I answered as many as I could, because that was the real legacy Robert had left me. Not just a company, not just stock certificates or court victories or financial stability. He'd left me proof that being underestimated is an advantage. That quiet strength is real strength. That doing the right thing, even when it's hard, even when it costs you everything, is worth it. He'd left me a compass, and I'd learned to follow it. 5 years after Robert's death, I stood in that same courtroom where Judge Chen had recognized my ownership. But this time I wasn't there for me. Richard's parole hearing. He'd served 15 years. He was 50 now, gray hair, lined face, the arrogance beaten out of him by time and consequences. Caroline sat beside me holding my hand. Patricia was in the back row with Chris and their 2-year-old daughter, Emma. The parole board asked Richard the standard questions. Had he been rehabilitated? Did he understand his crime? Would he reoffend? Richard answered honestly, painfully. He talked about his father, about greed, about the moment he'd stood by while Marcus poisoned the man who'd given him everything. He talked about therapy, about guilt, about learning to live with being the worst version of himself. Then they asked him, "If you're granted parole, what will you do?" Richard looked at me. "I won't ask for anything from Thompson Sterling. That company belongs to Margaret and Caroline, my sister and my stepmother, who both showed me more grace than I deserved. I won't try to rejoin the board or reclaim shares or insert myself into the business. I'll get a job, maybe teaching or counseling or something where I can give back to the community I hurt. I'll spend the rest of my life trying to be the man my father believed I could be, before I destroyed that belief." His voice cracked. "I killed my father. I can't undo that. I can't bring him back. But I can honor his memory by becoming someone who does good in the world instead of harm. And I can stay far away from the people I hurt, if that's what they need." The parole board deliberated for 30 minutes. When they returned, they granted parole with conditions: 5 years of supervised release, mandatory therapy, no contact with former Thompson Sterling clients or employees without explicit permission. Richard was free. Outside the courthouse, he approached us carefully like we were wild animals that might bolt. "Thank you for coming," he said quietly to Caroline. Then to me, "Thank you for not fighting this. You would have had every right." I looked at this man who'd helped kill my husband, who'd called me a gold digger, who'd tried to steal everything Robert had given me. And I saw someone broken and rebuilt, humbled and trying. "Your father would want you to have a second chance," I said. "Not because you earned it, but because he believed people could change." "Could be better? So prove him right, Richard. Spend the rest of your life proving him right." Richard nodded, tears streaming down his face. He walked away, toward a halfway house, toward supervised release, toward a life of making amends. Caroline squeezed my hand. "That was kind." "No," I said. "It was what Robert would have done. There's a difference." Today, I'm 67 years old. Thompson Sterling Technologies employs 312 people. We've expanded to Oregon and Washington. Our pro bono program serves 48 rural hospitals. The scholarship fund has sent 63 kids to college. Caroline is president. Patricia is CEO. Yes, I stepped down last year, promoted her, and took the title of board chair instead. I attend meetings, provide guidance, and spend the rest of my time traveling with Michael, writing a book about my experience, and volunteering with organizations that help widows navigate estate law. I still live in the house in Orangevale. Robert's house. Our house. I've updated some things, new appliances, repainted the bedroom, but I kept his office exactly as it was. Sometimes I sit in there with my morning coffee and talk to him. We did it, I tell him. We protected the company, protected the employees, made it mean something. And I swear, sometimes I feel him answer, "I told you so." My warrior queen in gardening gloves. The garden is bigger now. I grow 17 varieties of tomatoes, and every summer I donate hundreds of pounds to the local food bank. Robert would love that. Using the garden, he taught me to tend to feed people who are hungry. The compass necklace never comes off. Neither does his wedding ring on its chain. Michael understands. He knows he's not replacing Robert. He's just being Michael, steady, kind, present. And that's enough. More than enough. Sometimes people ask me if I forgive Marcus for murdering my husband. If I forgive Richard for helping, I don't. Forgiveness isn't the same as moving forward. You can build a beautiful life on the ashes of tragedy without pretending the fire was okay. You can love again without forgetting who you lost. You can thrive without absolving the people who tried to destroy you. Robert's killers are in prison or dead. Justice was served, but justice didn't bring him back. What brought me back, what saved me, was refusing to be the victim they expected. Was fighting when they thought I'd crumble. Was proving that a 62-year-old widow with no business experience could outthink, out-strategize, and outlast men who'd spent their entire lives believing they were entitled to win. They underestimated me. That was their biggest mistake. Last week, I spoke at a women's business conference in San Francisco. 500 women packed into a hotel ballroom to hear the widow who took down a billionaire talk about leadership and resilience. I told them Robert's story, my story, the whole messy, painful, triumphant journey from grieving widow to CEO to guardian of a legacy. At the end, during Q&A, a young woman stood up, mid-20s, nervous, wringing her hands. "Mrs. Thompson, I just lost my mother. And my father's new wife is trying to cut me out of the family business. I don't have evidence like you did. I don't have a Patricia or a David Ewan. I'm alone and scared and I don't know what to do." The room went silent. I looked at her. At this young woman standing at the beginning of a battle I remembered too well, and I said, "You're not alone. First, you're never as alone as you think. There are lawyers who specialize in estate law, who work pro bono or sliding scale for people who can't afford their rates. There are organizations that help women fight for their rights. There are forensic accountants and investigators and good people who will help you if you ask. Find them. Build your team." I paused. Second, document everything. Every conversation, every email, every threat. Create a paper trail that proves what's happening. Evidence wins cases, not emotion. Be smart. Be thorough. Be obsessive about documentation. Third, don't let them make you small. They'll try to intimidate you, dismiss you, make you feel like you're being greedy or unreasonable for fighting for what's yours. Don't believe them. You have the right to protect yourself, your inheritance, and your mother's legacy. Fighting for that isn't selfish. It's necessary. I smiled at her. And finally, remember this. They're counting on you being too scared to fight. Every bully counts on their victim staying quiet. But the moment you stand up, the moment you refuse to be intimidated, that's when the power dynamic shifts. You might not win every battle. You might lose things that matter. But you'll win the war because you'll become someone stronger, someone who refused to be erased. The young woman was crying. So was half the audience. "You can do this," I said. "I believe in you. Your mother believed in you, or she wouldn't have left you part of the business. Now go prove everyone right." The applause was deafening. After the conference, the young woman found me in the hallway. She hugged me, thanked me, and promised to fight. I gave her Patricia's contact information, told her Patricia knew lawyers and resources and would help her build her case, paying it forward. Building a network of women who refuse to disappear, that's the real legacy. Not the company, not the money, not even the justice. The legacy is showing other women that it's possible to survive the worst thing that ever happened to you and come out the other side not just intact, but powerful. Tonight I'm sitting in my garden, watching the sun set over the valley oaks, tomatoes ripening on the vine. Michael inside making dinner because it's his turn to cook. My phone buzzes. A text from Caroline, Emma's first day of kindergarten tomorrow. She's wearing the compass necklace you gave her. She says it's for brave people who need direction. I smile. Patricia's daughter, named after Caroline's middle name, wearing a compass necklace because she'd heard the story of her grandmother Margaret. Not by blood, but by choice, fighting for justice. Another text from Patricia. Board approved the expansion to Arizona. 25 new jobs. Robert would be thrilled. And one from Richard, the first I've received in 5 years. Got my teaching certification. Starting at a community college next month. Thank you for giving me the chance to try again. I put down the phone and look at the garden, at the house, at the life I've built from the ruins of grief and betrayal and murder. Did I win? Yes, completely and absolutely. But winning didn't look like I thought it would. It wasn't about money or revenge or watching my enemies suffer, though justice felt necessary and right. Winning was waking up and wanting to be alive. Was building something good from something terrible. Was learning that being underestimated is an advantage, that quiet strength is real strength, that you can survive losing everything and still find reasons to laugh. Winning was becoming the woman Robert believed I was, even when I didn't believe it myself. I touched the compass necklace, feeling the weight of it against my chest. North, always pointing north. Home. I still get letters. Every single week, women who found their own stock certificates hidden in desk drawers. Daughters who discovered their father's secret wills. Widows who refused to accept "that's just how things are" as an answer. And every single one starts the same way. I didn't think I could do it. But then I remembered your story. If you're sitting there right now, scared, alone, facing people who think you're too weak to fight back, I want you to know something. They're wrong about you, just like they were wrong about me. You're stronger than the grief. Smarter than their schemes, more capable than they'll ever admit. So take a deep breath. Document everything. Find your Patricia, your David Yun, your Caroline. Build your team. Gather your evidence, and then show them exactly who they're dealing with. Because the world needs more women who refuse to disappear, and maybe, just maybe, your story will inspire the next woman who thinks she can't. Win! Prove them all wrong. I'm rooting for you. Margaret, if this story resonated with you, don't keep it to yourself. Share it with a woman who needs to hear it. Comment below if you've ever been underestimated and came out on top. Your story matters. Your voice matters. And together, we're building an army of women who refuse to stay silent. Hit that like button if Margaret's fight inspired you to fight your own battles. We'll see you in the next one.